back to Focal Point AFR Talk, this Friday edition of Focal Point, Free for All Friday. Talk about anything you want. So let's go right back to the phones. Got some callers that have been waiting patiently. Let's go to Donnie in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. Donnie, you're on Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Hi.
Hey.
Thanks for having me today. I've been listening for a while and I heard a few things that I wanted to comment on.
All right.
I've been married 43 years. I've got 2 children and 3 grandchildren.
Congratulations.
Sanctity of marriage is very important to me and my wife. It's just something that God said we were supposed to do. Caller quite a few minutes ago, made the statement that we were told to be married, and he said that was procreation was the purpose for marriage and that we were supposed to be married. I agreed with him on that, and then we went through an interview and some more of the talking. Let's see, the thing about the same-sex marriage. Now, again, I agree with you. You don't love the sin, you love the sinner. And if the people who are going into same-sex marriage, of course, in my estimation, that is a sin. You don't love the sin, you love the sinner. And
right.
Of course, I have kids, and like you said before, if your son were to rob a bank, you would still love him and you would help him to come through that. But it's, again, you love that son, you love the person, you don't love the sin. The thing about what you talked with another guy earlier was you made a quote from Genesis, and it's talking about if a man sheds the blood, blood. Go ahead, and if you could quote that again.
All right, let me just find that, and let me make one comment about what you were saying. Man, I just lost it. What were you just talking about, Donnie? You were talking about marriage. What were we just talking about there? Just the last thing we were talking about. Somebody help me with that. Anyway, what's that?
I think that, we had a caller a few minutes ago before your interview with the lady, and he came on and he said that we were supposed to be married and that marriage is, the purpose for marriage was procreation.
Yeah, and you agreed with that, and I don't know, I had a thought, but I lost it. Anyway, here is what Genesis 9:5 and 6 says. This is after the flood now, so prior to the flood, capital punishment was not allowed. Remember, when Cain killed his brother, God would not let anybody take his life. He was afraid somebody was going to kill him, and God said, no, you do that, you're going to have to answer to me. Yeah. So there was no capital punishment prior to the flood, and that's why you get to chapter 6. What God is doing is he's giving us an opportunity. It was giving ancient man an opportunity to kind of build a society with no rules. This is what happens when there aren't any rules and there's no punishment. And things just fell apart, completely deteriorated, fragmented, to the point where the every intention of the thought of man was only evil all the time, and God had to wipe the whole place out, start over. So as part of creating a structured, ordered, tranquil society, he gives man the authority, permission to exercise the death penalty in Genesis chapter 9. For your lifeblood, this is also where he gives us permission to eat meat, by the way. We didn't have that prior to the flood. We were vegetarians prior to the flood. And he says this in verse 3, every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. As I gave you the green plants, now, he says, I give you everything. That's meat. But you shall not eat flesh with its life, that is, drink the blood. For your lifeblood, I will require a reckoning. From every beast I will require it, and from man. From his fellow man, I will require a reckoning for the life of man. Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed, for God made man in his own image. So go ahead from there.
Okay, now I go pretty strict on the word of the Bible, and it said, and you said that God has given us the opportunity or the ability that He's given us permission to use capital punishment.
Yeah, he's authorized it. Yes.
I think He's commanded it.
Well, yeah, you're right about that. I mean, he says, by man shall his blood be shed. He's saying, I want you to do this. Yeah, I agree with you.
Right, and then again, the word shall comes up again, where it's told the man, you shall leave your mother and your father and get married. So marriage is, again, an institution that in my way of thinking, was command.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't an option.
I see what you're saying. That, and that's a good point. That's a good point. God is not saying, look, I'm going to leave it up to you to decide what this is. I've designed marriage, and I want you to pursue it. I want you to get married. I want you to have kids. I want you to be fruitful. I want you to multiply. That's my design for you. Yeah. All right.
Exactly. I love that. You said it's his design. Why would he make us to be part A and part B,
Mm-hmm.
and come up with part C, which is the child? And part A and part A, you don't.
Yeah. All right, Donnie, listen, I appreciate that call. That's insightful. I appreciate that. Thank you for that. And Donnie's right. God says here, for his fellow man, I will require a reckoning for the life of man. I will require it for the life of man. Let's go to Josh, Brookshire, Texas. Josh, welcome to Focal Point. What's on your mind?
I've been hearing about the whole CPAC issues in which some people are not being allowed there because they're claiming that the Muslim Brotherhood has infiltrated CPAC and, they don't allow anti-Islamic preaching since I actually go on there. My personal opinion on that is that I don't think that's the case. I think for whatever reason, I don't know the full details, so of course I can be wrong. I admit that. But it just seems like, maybe they weren't for various other reasons, but I'm pretty sure at CPAC that there are anti-Islamic speakers or anti-Islamic messages that are allowed. So it's like, well, if those are allowed, then how come those aren't allowed if the if the Muslim Brotherhood is not allowing a certain? And for me, it just doesn't make any sense. At this point, it makes me think of I think it was 40, 50 years ago, where everyone was calling each other communists, and it wasn't. It was just a scare.
Yeah.
And I think the problem now is that it's mainly been everyone has been attacking Democrats, saying, oh well, Muslim Brotherhood has infiltrated them, and then as soon as someone on their side gets mistreated or so, it's like, oh, no, they have to be the Muslim Brotherhood. And I think that this is going to tear the whole, it could potentially tear the whole conservative movement apart.
Well, Josh, let me, did you hear my conversation with Robert Spencer yesterday at all? Did you hear any of that?
I do believe I might have heard.
Okay, because Robert Spencer, he heads up Jihad Watch. He actually won an award as Blogger of the Year, People's Choice Award. They would not let him accept the award at CPAC because of the things that he had said about Grover Norquist and his buddy Suhail Khan, who is hip deep in the Brotherhood, very active in supporting radical Muslim causes. And that's why they wouldn't let him even come and receive the award. And Pamela Geller, she runs a website called Atlas Shrugs. She's spoken there the last 4 years. You're right, Josh. They've had speakers there in the past that have told the truth about Islam. She wanted to come back, and her events have been standing room only. They've been very, very popular. They told her this year that she could not come back. She wanted to come back and speak and do a ceremony or do a seminar, hold an opportunity, and they said no, we're not going to let you do it. And so the thing with Robert Spencer was really quite pointed. And see, I agree with you, Josh. I think the conservative movement could founder over Islam. If the conservative movement does not come to an agreement that Islam is something that represents a danger to the West, it represents a threat to our culture, it represents a threat to our way of life, it represents a threat to our national sovereignty, its values are absolutely contrary to every value we cherish in the West. If the conservative movement doesn't understand that and come to an agreement that that is a force that's got to be resisted, I agree that could fracture the conservative movement, but that would be the problem. That would be the fault of the people who are blinded about the reality of Islam. Your reaction to that?
Well, I wouldn't entirely agree. I mean, I am myself a Muslim, but I do just agree with the whole idea that it seems that people bickering over each other over some minor conspiracies could destroy the whole movement from the inside out, and not.
Well, let me ask, Josh. I'm glad to find out you're a Muslim, because let me ask you a couple follow-up questions. You're familiar with the Muslim Brotherhood, right?
Yes, I'm not familiar with them, but I have read their Wikipedia page.
Okay, now there are 29 different organizations in the United States that are arms of the Muslim Brotherhood. You've got the Muslim student associations on hundreds of college campuses. You have the North American Islamic Trust owns a lot of buildings. You have the Islamic Society of North America, ISNA. And you've got all kinds of these. You got the Council on American Islamic Relations, CAIR. All of these are offshoots of the Muslim Brotherhood. You know, and we know that a representative of CAIR, for instance, Nihad Awad, he was with George Bush like a day or two after 9/11, standing there representing the Muslim faith. And we know, I had Andy McCarthy on yesterday, and Josh, we know that there's a memo from the Muslim Brotherhood from 1991 that outlines their goal for North America, and their goal is to eliminate and destroy Western civilization by sabotaging its miserable house. And so, Josh, so we know, and I'll give you the rest of the time here, but Josh, we know from words that have come from their own lips that they want to destroy Western civilization. I just don't see how it makes sense for us to make room for that in America. Go ahead.
As far as the Muslim Brotherhood being extremist and, crazy for all sense, yes, they are. I mean, I haven't heard anything positive coming from the Muslim Brotherhood, but I think there should be, I want to say, a separation of saying, well, it's like that comment I've heard that's saying, not all Muslims are terrorists, but all terrorists are Muslims. Right. I mean, because I've read the Quran, and what they're saying is completely contradictory. I mean, they're equivalent to, let's say, the Westboro Baptist Church, in which they're picking and choosing certain quotes and such, or they're misinterpreting and such. So, I mean...
Well, Josh, one last comment. I mean, I've read the Quran myself. I've marked it up. I got a marked up copy. There are a lot of verses in there, Josh, where Allah commands his followers to kill infidels. I mean, it's just... Surah 9:5, slay the idolaters wherever you find them. I don't find any ambiguity there. And I'm gonna have to keep this short, Josh, because we're out of time. But my problem with Muslims, I agree with you, not all Muslims are terrorists, but so far moderate Muslims have not given us a way to identify the Muslims we have to worry about so we can separate them from the ones that we don't. And so until that happens, Josh, I think we have to be cautious about them all. Well, listen, I appreciate your call. I'm sorry we don't have more time. Thanks for chatting. Focal Point AFR Talk. We'll be right back in 2 minutes. Stay with us.